Welcome to Timeless Wisdom Podcast. Today, you're joining us as we explore some really profound insights. They're nestled within the Quran. Specifically, we're focusing on the second chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah. Think of this as, well, your shortcut to understanding some truly timeless guidance on navigating personal growth and, the challenges life throws our way.
Right.
We've got some fascinating verses lined up, and our mission really is to unpack them so you can walk away with practical wisdom for your own life.
Exactly. And we're going to be looking at specific verses, specific stories within Surah Al-Baqarah to draw out actionable principles.
Okay.
The sources we have, they really highlight the importance of following divine guidance, the natural consequences of turning away from it, and also recognizing where all our blessings truly originate.
That's crucial.
Yeah. And to make this really concrete for you, we'll also be looking at a specific historical example.
That's right. We'll be examining the experiences of some of the Jewish residents of Medina during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Their story, as it's presented in our sources, holds some incredibly relevant lessons for us even today. Okay, let's dive right into a particularly thought-provoking verse.
Okay, let's start with verse 2.9. It says, "What an evil thing they have sold themselves for in rejecting what Allah has sent down, outraged that Allah should send down his favor on whomever he wills of his servants.
Wow.
They have brought down anger upon anger on themselves, and there is a humiliating punishment for the faithless."
So what's the context here? What's the backstory?
Well, our sources tell us this verse addresses the jealousy felt by some Jewish people in Medina towards Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Jealousy, okay.
Yeah, they seem to resent that the final prophet, even though their own scriptures, the Torah and the Gospel, actually spoke of his coming.
Right, they foretold him.
Exactly. But they resented that he was an Arab. It's interesting, isn't it? They expected him to come from their own lineage.
That's fascinating. So the issue wasn't the message itself initially, but who was delivering it.
Precisely. And what's really key here is that this resentment, it stemmed from a place of pride, a feeling of entitlement almost, assumption that they were the exclusive inheritors of God's message. And this pride, it acted like a veil. It prevented them from recognizing the truth even when it was right in front of them. Think about how easily we too can fall into that trap, feeling like we deserve certain blessings or that divine favor should operate according to our expectations. Instead of recognizing it as a pure gift given by the Almighty as he sees fit, it's a real check on the ego.
It really makes you pause and think about your own biases, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we filter information through our own preconceived notions, our own pride, perhaps?
Absolutely.
Now, our sources also delve into the principle of divine justice and, well, its consequences. Let's turn our attention to verse 2.179.
Okay, verse 2.179 states, "There is life for you in retribution, O people of intellect, so that you may take heed."
Life for you in retribution. That sounds almost paradoxical at first. How can retribution mean life?
Well, what stands out in this verse is the idea that even consequences, even the difficult ones in this life, they serve a purpose beyond just punishment.
Okay.
They're actually a source of life, in a sense, because they provide a vital lesson. They encourage us to reflect, to learn, and ultimately, they help restore balance. It's a corrective measure.
So it's about learning and course correction, preventing further harm.
Exactly. And our sources give us some, stark examples of this principle at work.
Like what?
The eventual downfall of those who engage in practices like charging interest right or predatory lending, and just general oppression. It's almost like a natural law, a cause and effect playing out in society.
Actions have consequences baked into the system.
Precisely. And the text brings up the example of those same Jewish residents in Medina again, noting that their widespread corruption and the conflicts they instigated ultimately led to their displacement and the loss of their wealth.
So it wasn't just bad luck.
No, not according to these sources. It wasn't a random event. It was presented as a direct consequence of their actions, their choices. And it's crucial for you, for the listener, to understand that this principle, actions leading to tangible outcomes, isn't limited to any one group. It's universal.
Applies to everyone.
To everyone, believers and non-believers alike. It really raises an important question for you personally. Are you actively considering the long-term impact of your choices and actions in your own life? Are you mindful of these divine laws of cause and effect?
That definitely prompts some serious self-reflection. It's not just about belief, but about actions and their real-world ripple effects. Okay, moving on, our sources also highlight the vital importance of respecting the boundaries set by the divine. Let's explore verses 2.229 and 2.187.
Right. Verse 2.229 is quite direct. These are the bounds set by God. Do not overstep them. It is those who overstep God's bounds who are doing wrong.
Clear.
Very. And then verse 2.187 elaborates on this, especially within the context of spiritual devotion during Ramadan, for instance. It says, do not lie with them during the nights of your devotional retreat in the mosques. These are the bounds set by God, so do not go near them.
Another specific boundary.
Yes, and notice the end. In this way, God makes his messages clear to people that they may guard themselves against doing wrong. It's about clarity and protection.
Okay, so it's clear that the Almighty establishes limits, hudud, Allah, in, well, all aspects of our lives. Things we should do, commands, and things we shouldn't do, prohibitions.
Exactly.
And these aren't arbitrary rules, are they? The sources emphasize they are there for our own well-being, our own protection, to keep us from falling into wrongdoing.
Precisely. These boundaries, you can think of them like protective walls. They guide us towards what is beneficial and steer us away from what is harmful for us as individuals and harmful for the wider community.
That makes sense. Structure for flourishing.
Yes. Now, if we connect this back to the example of the community in Medina we discussed.
The ones who were jealous.
Right. We can see how their jealousy, that internal state, led them to cross a fundamental boundary, the boundary of accepting Allah's chosen messenger.
So the internal state led to the external transgression?
Exactly. Their pride, their jealousy, it prevented them from acknowledging the truth, and this ultimately led them to transgress other divine boundaries as well. It's a slippery slope.
It's almost like our internal states, like jealousy or pride, if left unchecked, can actually push us to violate clear divine guidelines. And that has significant repercussions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which
brings us nicely to the next point, recognizing our blessings for what they truly are, divine favors. This is highlighted in verses 35.1617 of Surah Fatir.
Okay, what do those verses say?
They state, if he wills, he can do away with you and bring in a new creation, and that is not difficult for God.
That's quite humbling, a reminder of our dependence.
Very humbling. What's really key here for you, for all of us to understand, is that all the talents, the possessions, the abilities you have, they are ultimately gifts from the Almighty.
Not things we inherently own or deserve.
Exactly. They aren't inherent rights that you possess indefinitely. They are trusts, favors.
The analogy our sources use about athletes really illustrates this point well, doesn't it?
It does. You see these top athletes, incredible skill, peak physical condition.
Yeah.
But their success is temporary, isn't it?
Yeah, it can change in an instant.
An injury, a sudden decline in form. It reminds us of the fleeting nature of worldly achievements and abilities. They are granted, and they can be withdrawn.
So it's not ours by right.
Not at all. And this understanding, this realization, it leads to a really important practical step for you, for anyone listening. It's about cultivating a constant state of gratitude, humility.
Shukr.
Yes, shukr.
Yeah.
Always attributing your blessings and accomplishments back to Allah first, recognizing He is the source.
And it's interesting, you mentioned modern psychology earlier.
Well, this aligns beautifully with principles found in modern psychology.
Yeah.
Study after study shows that gratitude has a profound positive impact on our mental well-being, our resilience, our happiness.
So Islamic wisdom and modern findings converge here.
They often do. Recognizing these gifts as divine favors encourages us to use them responsibly, wisely, in accordance with His guidance, not wastefully or arrogantly.
So it shifts our perspective entirely, from feeling entitled to our successes, like I earned this all myself, to understanding that we are stewards of these blessings.
Exactly. Stewards. And we will be accountable for how we utilize them.
That's a heavy but important responsibility. Now, the Quran frequently shares stories of past communities. You've mentioned the example from Medina a few times. What's the underlying wisdom in the Quran using these historical narratives?
That's a great question. The very purpose of these narratives, these stories of nations past, is to provide us today with invaluable lessons. They're not just history lessons.
Their guidance.
They're guidance.
Their guidance.
By examining the experiences of those who came before us, both the righteous and those who went astray, you can gain insights into patterns of human behavior, the consequences of choices.
Both good and bad.
Both good and bad. And ultimately, the goal is to learn how to avoid repeating their mistakes in your own life, in our own communities.
So history as a teacher, guided by divine revelation.
Precisely. And this leads to a very direct and frankly important question posed in our sources. It's aimed right at you, the listener, as someone striving to live a meaningful, God-conscious life.
What's the question?
Are you truly reflecting on these narratives, like the one we've discussed today about jealousy and rejection? Are you actively ensuring that you are not, in your own life, in subtle or obvious ways, violating God's commands?
Wow. That's a powerful call for self-examination. It's not passive reading.
Absolutely not. It's about moving beyond just hearing or reading these stories to internalizing their wisdom, applying them to your own circumstances, your own decisions, your own heart.
Checking ourselves constantly.
Constantly. Finally, we need to address the concept mentioned back in verse 2.90, the idea of the humiliating punishment for those who reject faith.
Right. It mentioned that specifically for the faithless. What more do the sources say about this?
Well, they elaborate on this, explaining that this isn't just, any ordinary punishment. It's described as something severe, inescapable, specifically for those who deliberately turn away from the truth after it has been made clear to them.
So it's about willful rejection, not ignorance.
Exactly. It's a conscious choice to deny or fight against the clear signs and guidance from Allah. Are
there other descriptions in the Quran?
Indeed. The sources point to descriptions provided in other chapters, like Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verses 69-70, and Surah Ad-Dukhan, chapter 44, verses 38-50.
And what do they describe?
They give a vivid, sobering picture. Things like being dragged into hellfire, having boiling water poured over their heads, the agonizing reality of the tree of Zaqqum as sustenance. It's meant as a stark reminder.
A reminder of the seriousness of rejecting divine guidance knowingly.
Yes, the serious consequences of knowingly, persistently rejecting Allah's mercy and truth when it's presented.
It's crucial to understand then, as our sources emphasize, that this specific punishment is highlighted as a result of that deliberate rejection, despite the clarity, despite the opportunities to embrace faith.
Correct. It underscores the immense importance of faith, of Iman, and the need for sincerity in our belief and submission.
Okay, so as we bring this together, wrapping up our discussion, we've really explored some deep verses from Surah Al-Baqarah today.
We have. And they offer such profound insights, don't they, into the critical importance of accepting divine guidance with humility.
Not pride.
Not pride. Respecting the boundaries, the limits set by the Almighty for our own well-being.
Because they protect us.
They do. And recognizing that every single blessing in your life, big or small, is a favor, a gift granted by Him alone.
And that story, the example of those who rejected Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, out of envy and pride. It serves as such a powerful, timeless reminder.
It really does, a reminder of the destructive nature of pride and jealousy, and the absolute necessity for humility, for submission to the truth wherever we find it.
And these aren't just, as you said, historical accounts locked in the past.
Not at all. They are living principles. They hold immense relevance for your life right here, right now. They can guide your actions, foster continuous personal growth, help you navigate challenges.
So the call to action is?
Take some time. Reflect. Reflect on the countless blessings, the bounties in your own life. Consciously acknowledge their true source, Allah, and strive, really strive to understand and diligently adhere to the limits He has set. Recognize they are ultimately for your own profound benefit in this life and the next.
Sound advice. For more enriching content like this and insightful discussions on how to actually apply Islamic principles in your daily life, be sure to subscribe to our channel, The Broke Entrepreneur.
The Quran's wisdom is timeless. Apply it today.